Welcome to Learn to Live Stress-Free. This is Christine Wright with Dr. Robert Wright Jr., your go-to wellness coaches of www.stressfreenow.info.
Today, we will be speaking with Judith Pennington, who is an author, teacher, and world authority on brainwave biofeedback meditation, a scientific and spiritual discipline that is gaining attention and popularity worldwide. Judith is the author of The Voice of the Soul, a groundbreaking book about inspired writing and the science of spirituality. Judith's latest book is entitled Your Psychic Soul, Embracing Your Sixth Sense, which takes the reader on a still deeper journey into the world of intuition and the superconscious mind of enlightenment. Published by Edgar Cayce's Fourth Dimension Press in December 2012, Your Psychic Soul is a scientific and spiritual exploration of meditation, the brainwaves of consciousness, psi experiences, dreaming, inspired writing, hands-on healing, and the global shift in consciousness that is now underway. Judith regularly travels and teaches internationally for an organization she founded, the Institute for the Awakened Mind, and in the U.S., for Edgar Cayce's ARE, located in Virginia Beach, Virginia. She also writes 2 free online publications, The Still Small Voice and One World Spirit, which can be accessed from her primary website, eaglelife.com. Judith, welcome. It's certainly an honor and a privilege to have you as our featured guest today.
Well, thank you so very much, Bob. I really appreciate your inviting me.
Hi, Judith. We're so glad to have you here. Hello, listeners. You're in for a treat today to listen to Judith as she talks about living the work that she teaches. Judith, how did you come to this life where you have congruence between your beliefs and your work?
Oh, well, actually, I was lucky, and that was very easy for me because I had kind of an experience, a spiritual lightning wake-up call when I was 24 years old. I had some wake-up calls before and ignored them, but on this particular day, I was driving down an interstate in Baton Rouge to go to a doctor who I was going to see about a really sharp pain in my side. And I hadn't really worried about it till then. I'd seen him the previous Friday. It was now a Monday, and I was just tooling along in my car McGee, and it suddenly dawned on me that there could be something really wrong. And so I heard myself say, I don't know if there's anything wrong with me or not, but if there is, please don't let anything happen to me because I'm the only one who can take care of my 2-year-old little girl. And then just all of a sudden, I felt this very cold chill wash over my body, kind of like the thing you feel when you're seeing a horror movie, and just for a split second you feel this cold chill. But then it turned into these warm waves of light that began to wash all through my body, and it felt like my body was just bursting into light. And I had this sensation of flipping behind myself at the driver's wheel, and not knowing who was driving because I was just, swimming in this light and this bliss and this sense of being loved and held in this warm and radiant embrace, and knowing that there's no such thing as death, that joy that I was experiencing is what we experience at the moment of death. And this went on for about 20 minutes from the time I got on the interstate to the time I saw my exit, and just suddenly in the midst of it, I noticed the exit coming up ahead of me, and then I found myself back at the wheel, and my awareness coming back into my hands, and it seemed a really long time. And I steered off, went home, did some preparations for the medical examination. And when I got to the doctor's office, he examined me and he says, well, I don't know what happened to the large tumor I saw in your abdomen on Friday, but it must have been the pills I gave you, and it's all gone now. And I just thought, it wasn't the pills, it was something else. And I don't know what it was or how it happened, but it changed me. It was a spiritual awakening, a transformation, really a moment of illumination, what some people call moments of cosmic consciousness. And then I could never look back and say that something extraordinary did not exist. I couldn't doubt or deny it, and I didn't, actively do anything about it at the time. I mean, at 24, you're just kind of trying to survive. But from that point on, there was an unconscious undercurrent, a drive in me to try to understand what this force was. And I think everything in my life began to synchronistically line up so I could try to better understand the cause and the extent of it. Was it inside me or was it outside of me? At the time, it never occurred to me that it could be both. But, in my life as a journalist, stories lined up, experiences lined up, and then it was just this very gradual, very slow transformation, and I'm so grateful for it. I don't know where I'd be if it hadn't been for it, and it's been an incredible joy to help other people find it through more scientific means, but it is there, and people do find it, and I can't think of anything that I would rather be doing in life.
Incredible. Thank you, Judith. So your experience is turning out to be a gift to many, and for that we're really appreciative.
Thank you. Me too.
Yes, Judith, that's a pretty amazing story, especially at 24 years old, that, as you say, that your primary concern was that you were the caretaker for your daughter, and that makes a lot of sense. Judith, let me ask you this question. You have a background as a journalist. How do you successfully handle the stress of deadlines, and what advice and unique insights can you give our audience about how to overcome writer's block and the internal resistances which can come up when you have to meet tight deadlines or target dates? There are so many people who face that internal resistance, which is not obvious. And so I know as a journalist, you had to have figured out how to overcome that. So can you give us those insights?
Sure. Well, and it's kind of the same answer I'd give to almost any other question. And it ties back to that story I just told you, is that there is within each of us a wellspring of creativity and insight and wisdom. And if we simply sit down for 5 to 20 minutes or for the most intrepid of us, even a whole hour at a time for just a couple of days of the week, then there's an inner ordering that occurs that allows us to become, as Christine said, more coherent and flowing inside. And there's this prioritization that happens. I'll never forget the point at which, after connecting with Edgar Cayce's ARE, and I took up, beyond my inspired writing practice, an actual regular practice of meditation, and I would go into my meditation room in the morning, and then these creative ideas would just stream into my awareness, and I would see what needed to be done first, how to do it, how to say it. And it wasn't that I wasn't in the still silence of meditation. It's that there was this inner flow. And so you come out of that kind of inner connection and sit down at the computer, and it takes you 15 minutes to write the lead, the 1 or 2 paragraph lead to your story instead of, an hour. And the story takes you 2 hours to write instead of 4 or 5 or 6. And so that diminishes stress a whole lot. You have this inner sense of knowing that you're moving in the right direction, this flow state of awareness in your mind, this sense that all is right, all is well, all is good. And at that point, whatever comes up, you just look at it and say, there it is, and you either decide to do it or not. But the undercurrent of peace and tranquility that comes out of meditation and what we call the awakened mind of mastery just makes everything easier. Whether it's your writing work, the way you approach visual art or performing art. I mean, we call that peak performance nowadays. Whether it's how you deal with a family crisis or solve a relationship, it's all about the state of mind you're in, essentially.
Right. As I was listening to you, Judith, that mention of coming to the stillness to do this would just be so wonderful, and hopefully we're getting there, where that's encouraged more in our society or in our schools.
Isn't it? Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, there's this idea of tension before you do some type of work or writing, and it's you're sort of building up the fear and the adrenaline rather than going to stillness and creating from that centered place.
That is so true. People think that if you speed up your mind, you're going to increase your productivity, and instead what you actually do is fragment your consciousness and shorten your life. It's out of the stillness that flow state comes, and that's what actually increases productivity and performance.
That's interesting, Judith. Based on your answer, I'm curious about this issue. From a neurofeedback standpoint, when you say slow down your mind, I assume that you're talking about going down the scale from beta to alpha to theta, for example, and in terms of slowing down the brain waves. But what I was wondering is that when they've done the studies of monks in the gamma brainwave region, that's actually going the opposite direction, so 40 hertz and above. So that's actually my question. Is that a paradox, or it's just the way that we've structured talking about this phenomena of, forgetting that the word is not the thing?
Yeah, no, it's all of the above. So in the brainwave biofeedback work that I do, it's called Awakened Mind Training. What we realize, and certainly I've realized in particular, is that the mind and consciousness and body's energy field in connection with this 0-point quantum field of energy that we call God, there are so many ways into higher awareness. You can do as the monks have done and increase your attentional awareness and your compassion and your love for humankind. And that out of high beta, which is normally externalized active thinking, increases the speed of brainwaves up into the gamma range. Or you can go out into nature and listen to the song of a bird and enjoy the beauty and color and texture of leaves and the movement of wind through a forest, and go into a peak state of consciousness, which will take you into an orchestrated brainwave state that connects with gamma. Or you can go down into inner transformation work in your subconscious theta brainwaves and connect with your deeper unconscious mind, where everything is already known and understood and in direct connection with the universe, and awaken that way. So you can awaken through any of the 4 brainwave categories, but essentially what you're doing is orchestrating the beta, alpha, theta, and delta into a peak state that opens to the kind of peak experience I had on that interstate so many years ago. You know, you're just opening to illumination. And what is illumination? It is up there in gamma, but basically you're going down, 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 deeper to be able to go out and up.
Wow, I have to tell you, Judith, that answer that you just gave me a key insight in terms of the simple explanation is if I think of what my question was about, are you going down or are you going up, I can think of it as the bidirectionality that Fisher describes in terms of the hypo and the hyperarousal states that, you know, ergotropic and tropotropic phenomena, that they can be switched in and out from either direction. And so I want to thank you for that. And I look forward at a future time to discussing that, because that is, as you can imagine, an amazing type thing. Many people would not realize that on the, you know, for example, if you get a massage and you go really deep, that you could experience, there's a place of connection where it could switch out, where you're experiencing the same thing a person that would experience in a static trance, you know, which was, you know, from the hyper dancing. And so that is really an interesting insight you have. Let me ask you this,
and
Judith.
People do it all the time, Bob. I mean, I expect that every single one of your listeners has had some kind of peak experience in some context and knows exactly what we're talking about here.
Right. Okay. I want to thank you for that. And because, you know, we sometimes get caught up in these labels and jargon, and it's really very simple. As you said, you were on the highway, we were driving, and then you had this transforming event, which was a game changer for you, and that's really what we're talking about.
We'll be back in a moment on Learn to Live Stress-Free. We're speaking today with Judith Pennington.
Have you been procrastinating about completing an important project or pursuing a treasured dream? Christine Wright specializes in helping her coaching clients to lay out clear, goal-achieving strategies. She shows you how to quickly build your confidence and uncover and eliminate your habitual patterns of resistance and self-sabotage. Let Christine help you discover those meaningful insights that will get you to do what works so you can celebrate your successes. Go to stressfreenow.info/contact. to let Christine know that you're ready to live your ideal life. Again, that's stressfreenow.info/contact. Are you dealing with stress burnout, chronic pain, anxiety, or unresolved grief? Hi, this is Dr. Robert Wright, Jr., the Stress Relief Doctor. I'm an author, speaker, and stress management wellness coach, co-host of the Learn to Live Stress-Free Now podcast series. I hold a PhD in Transformative Studies and a master's degree in psychology. I am the author of the first published study to show the connection between stress reduction, grief recovery, and nitric oxide spiking and the relaxation response. I also have a wealth of practical knowledge which helps you to relieve the stresses of everyday life so that you can live longer and play with your grandchildren. Work with me, and I'll give you the tools that you need to dissolve your pain points easily and effortlessly. Email me to find out how you can start to feel better now at stressfreenow.info/contact. That's stressfreenow.info/contact.
Welcome back to Learn to Live Stress-Free as we continue our conversation with Judith Pennington.
Judith, since you have traveled extensively to conduct your trainings, I know that you recently returned from Australia and India. Can you give our audience a brief overview of your recent trips, and what's it like to work with such a diverse international audience and clientele? I think when you think of India, you know, I'm wondering what kind of clientele was there versus Australia versus here in the United States.
You know what? I had the time of my life in both of those places. I went to India and Australia to train awakened mind practitioners using the mind mirror to help other people learn to meditate and awaken their minds. And so in Calcutta, I was hosted by this incredibly wonderful family that had these beautiful apartments. They were quite wealthy, and marble floors, the whole thing, these exquisite artworks of Krishna and Buddha on the walls. And they were business people, but also the practitioner that I went to train, although a member of a business family, has something called the Awareness Foundation. He does lots of different modalities. And he set up 2 different talks where 20, 30 people came into the giant drawing room in their apartments, and I did mind mirror demonstrations and gave talks. And then they set me up for this wonderful presentation for the Rotary Club of Central Calcutta, and I don't know, probably 60 people there. So it was a very diverse group of people coming everywhere from business to meditation, and some of the people were affiliated with the Monroe Institute and the whole out-of-body higher consciousness experiences. But the beauty of it for me is not just meeting all these different kinds of people, but working with these extremely advanced people who come at this awakened mind training from literally different cultural backgrounds and very interesting experiences in their own lives. I mean, I learn something everywhere I go. So in India, it was the practitioners came out of experiences with NLP, psychotherapy. The guy I was with in Calcutta, Niket Kaitan, had an aura camera. Just this whole array of spiritual tools and techniques for helping people awaken. And then in Australia, it was the same thing, where I was working in the home of a psychotherapist who brought lots of very interesting people into the house to experience the mind mirror. And she herself was Russian. And it just goes like that all the time. Last week, even here back in Pennsylvania, I had a practitioner come in from New Jersey who is an insurance broker of all things. And this guy just wanted to sharpen his game and his mind and open up, and he had the most amazing experiences with this awakened mind meditation. And he wrote me this email and said that in his practice of Taekwondo, I think it is, that he had so sharpened his intuition that he sensed a roundhouse block coming before or attack coming before the guy even moved. So it just echoes. I had a 2-week visit just last week from a German practitioner who's a Reiki healer and a singing teacher, a fantastic photographer, and a world traveler who is our first certified awakened mind trainer under the new Institute for the Awakened Mind that I founded. And it's just amazing. People are so awake and evolved these days. And when you're working with them, you look at the things that are going on in the rest of the world and say, well, yeah, it sure looks like a mess, but there's an echelon of people who are shifting and changing and transforming this world, and they're all over the world, and they're all ages. So talk about a diverse international clientele. It's the clientele of the spiritually, mentally and spiritually awakened, and boy, am I glad they exist. And that includes, of course, the ARE, everyone with the ARE. And they're right there in Virginia Beach,
Right. It is so wonderful listening to the story of your travel, Judith. It's very heartening, and I know I'm certainly filled with hope listening to you speak, and I'm sure our audience is too. That's why Bob and I are involved in the work that we're involved with. As we spoke about a little bit before the call, many times in our day-to-day in our world, we're looking at the external and not the internal. And for you to describe in your travel, people in different places, in different walks, are paying attention to something more than the externals, and that you've been able to find such common ground and common thread with a diverse population is wonderful. And when you mentioned the ARE, I remember the first time I came across that, I got a mailing, and I didn't know what it was, and I put it down. And then in terms of synchronicity, it came back again in the mail, and I signed up, started going to Virginia Beach. I was fortunate enough to have met Charles Thomas Casey and Gladys Turner. Now, I know you have been involved with them for many years, and tell us about your association with them, the books you've published with them, and your journey there.
Well, I'm glad you asked about that because, I love the ARE. I was actually intuitively and very directly led to the ARE by my meditative writings that started up when I was 37 years old in late 1987, and I heard this inner voice that said, sit down, pick up pen and paper, and write what you hear. And what I heard was this incredible wisdom and guidance that I followed for 12 years. And at one point, 7 years after I started, I heard this message in my meditative writing said that I was going to have an extraordinary new opportunity that would soon come up, and it would help me create a lot of change in my life. And that was another, as you mentioned, synchronistic event where a letter from the ARE followed me 4 addresses, and I ended up in a study group, and more synchronicities there. And the study group was 7 people. We opened a Search for God text, and there, in the very first chapter titled Meditation, was everything that my meditative writings had been teaching me for 7 years. And at that point, I became totally dedicated to the ARE. And I had a Kundalini experience. That was in 1993. And 1995, by then, I did have a regular meditation practice, which my writings had been suggesting without my having really pursued it for some time. And in 1995, I felt this electricity crawling up my back and knew that I had to go to a music and meditation camp in Virginia. And I did that and had more awakening experiences there and ended up writing for what was then their community newsletter, and then for some stories for Venture Inward, their magazine. And gradually, there was an intersection of the meditative writings and my inspired writings, and then I wrote my first book, The Voice of the Soul, in Virginia Beach, the first draft of it anyway. And there I had some direct guidance to the EEG biofeedback meditation work that I do. And I started teaching all of this, and at one point went to Charles Thomas's office and talked to his wife and said, you know what, I need to tell you guys, I'm teaching everything you teach out in the field, and I just, wanted to give you a heads up because I realized you might not like that. And she said, well, why don't you go talk to the field program and do it under our auspices? So I began to do that, and that has just been a blast, is that they book me to go to different cities and do these all-day seminars. And I've done them on everything under the sun, from meditation and biofeedback meditation. And so I travel to different cities giving these seminars for them on everything from Edgar Cayce and the Essenes, which is a very special interest of mine, Jesus and the Essenes, to the path to illumination, and the list just goes on and on. And I tell you, these are some of the most evolved people. I do brainwave sessions when I go to a city, offer them, and sometimes a lot of people line up the next that night and on Sunday. Gorgeous brainwaves, because they're doing the work of awakened mind development, which is a combination of deep subconscious meditation, in their case taught the Edgar Cayce way, which is the same way as ours, combined with inner transformation work. And so if you're cleaning and clearing the things that prevent you from centering and focusing your awareness and getting in touch with your spirit, then the ARE people are already doing that. So they have wonderful brainwaves. Talk about a great field of energy to be in when you go to one of these ARE events. It's just utterly amazing. I just love it. And everybody there, they're doing this fantastic work for the world. And I just wish that more people, would tune in and awaken to it, because everyone is helped by it.
I agree that really is an excellent organization. Now, Judith, I have another question for you, but I think you've answered much of it. On your website, you say that you teach individuals how to listen to the voice of truth within and how to be awakened into this evolved mind of personal and spiritual mastery. You've mentioned some of the ways this is done. Is this ongoing? Is this they take your training and they're set? Could you tell us a little bit more about what happens and what this process is?
Sure. Well, I do occasionally do private sessions, but these days, with the founding of the Institute for the Awakened Mind and my co-designing of a new mind mirror that has a at-home self-training program, I'm finding myself doing fewer private sessions, even fewer group brainwave trainings to help people meditate and awaken their minds, and instead have moved more into practitioner trainings to train the trainers to be able to go out and do awakened mind private sessions and group trainings as well. And this is what's taking me all over the world and having these worldwide practitioners coming here. We have a website called awakenedmind.org, but it's a really homemade thing that I put together.
Those are the best kinds.
Yeah, all the information's there, but it's visually pretty boring. And I'm happy to say that soon it is going to be replaced by a site I'm working on now and that is partially uploaded to Institute for the Awakened Mind.de for Deutsch, which is German. And then there's an English version on there. I'm going to upload it to .com pretty soon, but this Awakened Mind practitioner who I mentioned, Andrea Groh, is the first person to certify as an Awakened Mind trainer since the death of my teacher Anna Wise in 2010, and so Andrea is helped me design this website, and it's beautiful and very informative, and it's taking people to this self-training kit. So that's another way of reaching people all over the world. I'm more doing Skype sessions with people in Australia and Canada and France and Germany and Russia, and we work our way through what might be language barriers but end up not being. And I show them how to use this software. And people are just having the most, and they're such interesting people. One is a clinical psychiatrist or psychologist probably who works at a hospital in Perth, Australia. And he has just a delight and a joy to work with. And the list just goes on and on. So, yeah, it's this huge outreach where I'm ending up training the trainers who are helping people awaken individually and groups.
Well, that's extraordinary. I want to thank you, Judith, for your interview and sharing all this great information.
Thank you, Christine, for having me. It's been a joy talking with you.
Oh, yes, very definitely. Now, Judith, in addition to the new sites coming up, what is the best place right now for our audience to contact you and learn about your upcoming training? Well,
the best email address is Judith, ITH, at awakened, AWAKENED, mind.org. That one bounces to me. But they could also send an email through my primary website, which is eaglelife.com. That one has links to the Brainwave Biofeedback sites, as well as to my e-newsletter, The Still Small Voice, and my e-magazine, One World Spirit eagleLife.org. So it's kind of an intersection of every single different thing. I just don't trust that email address, Judy@eaglelife.com, all the time. So if people write me at Judith@awakenedmind.org, I always get that one.
All right, very good. I like that. So that's a little bit of a synchronistic stream to get through, to know that listeners, if you'd like to contact Judith, email her at Judith@awakenedmind.org. That's JUDITH @awakened, AWAKENEDMIND.org, Judith@awakenedmind.org, or check her primary website, eaglelife.com. That's www.eaglelife.com. Again, thank you so much, Judith.
Thank you, Bob and Christine. Hope to see you soon.
Yes, Judith, we have enjoyed having you on as our guest today. What final thoughts or key idea would you like our audience to take away from today's broadcast?
That there is an inner wellspring of wisdom inside us, and it's just waiting and wanting us to quiet our minds, ask for guidance, and connect with it. And that really is the answer to everything. It's not some religious or airy-fairy thing. It's just our natural ability that we can access to become all that we are and want to be.
Wonderful, Judith. I want to thank you for being our featured guest today, and I want to thank our audience so much for listening, wherever you are, in whatever time zone you are in. We welcome and look forward to your comments about our show. Please contact us through our website with your feedback and suggestions. Remember, listeners, if you'd like to experience the same benefits our coaching clients get with us and learn how to get control of your schedule or easy ways to dissolve your chronic pain, stress, or anxiety, feel free to call us at 954-900-2179. Mention that you heard our Stress Free Now podcast show, and your first session is absolutely free. Call today to schedule your appointment. For Christine Wright, this is Dr. Robert Wright, Jr. of www.stressfreenow.info. Until next time, be safe and be well.